guests, and our first guest is Sarah Douglas Murray, and Sarah is the Senior Manager for Cultural Services, Recreation and Culture in the Town of Oakville. Thank you so much for joining us. And Oakville is a leader in arts and culture and supporting arts and culture. It's been going on for years and years, though, Sarah. This is not a new thing for the Town of Oakville.
No, and thank you so much for having me today. The Town of Oakville developed its first cultural plan in 2009 and was the first municipality in the area to develop a cultural plan. And this year, we were able to update the cultural plan to kind of look forward for the next 5 years. So we were able to take that to council earlier this year and report on all of the successes we've had and also set out the new directions to move forward.
So when you say that you've got a cultural plan, what does that mean? I know that it means that you've spent a lot of time talking to the public, talking to people who are artists and who are not artists. But to put together a cultural plan, what does that mean for the community?
Yeah. So we worked very closely with all of our arts and cultural groups and the community. Over the first cultural plan took about 18 months to develop because there were so many consultations, listening, surveys, to understand what the current strengths of culture were in our community and where we maybe needed to invest and where we could kind of play a role to strengthen and facilitate everything that was happening within the community. And so that really allowed us to kind of develop a plan with the community on where we needed to go. In 2009, that was very much about space and working with systems to how to facilitate working with our groups. And this time when we went out to the community, we heard that there's a lot of really great things happening and we need to kind of broaden the reach into the community a little bit more as well.
And because you're broadening that reach, we want to broaden it even further by letting our audience know if they do have any questions or comments about anything that you have to say or would like to ask you a question. On the telephone, you can go to 905-333-6088, and that'll be at the bottom of the screen. Or you can tweet us at #TheIssue or go to Facebook on The Issue, and that's how they can communicate with you and with us if any of our audience does have any questions. I'd like to take a little bit of a step back and recognize the differences in the way Oakville delivers its cultural services and the way Burlington delivers its cultural services. Two communities that are so very close together, yet they do it in very different ways. Can you tell us about how you deliver cultural programs to the Town of Oakville?
Sure. Well, the town directly runs 3 large cultural facilities. It started with the Oakville Center for the Performing Arts, which will be turning 40 next year.
40, my goodness.
Yeah. So that was a very early foray by the municipality into running a cultural organization. The Oakville Museum is also directly run by the municipality, and 5 years ago we opened Queen Elizabeth Park Community and Cultural Center. So those are all directly operated by the municipality. They're funded out of the programs are funded out of the tax base, they're municipal employees. And then we also do provide support to other standalone groups and organizations, either through direct granting, like an agreement we have with the Oakville Arts Council to provide them with funding, or through cultural grants that are open to our other community cultural groups. And those programs are directly funded by the town, but the granting is allocated through the Oakville Arts Council. So there's a bit of an arm's length agreement there for how that funding works. And then we also do have a couple of staff, myself included, who work out of Town Hall. And my day-to-day is not just running the facilities that I spoke of, but it's also working with our cultural groups and organizations on programs and partnerships, on developing the cultural plan, on advocating for culture within the municipality, and liaising with the other departments.
Now, do you differentiate between culture and arts?
That was going to be my question. Culture means what?
What?
Because it means so many different
Yes.
things to different people.
Yes.
So certainly when we spoke to the community for the first cultural plan, it was very arts and culture based. We
Right.
heard a lot about the traditional forms of arts and culture that you would think of, the visual arts, the performing arts, and music. We did find when we went back out to the community that what people were thinking of as culture was much broader now.
Right.
They still thought of those traditional medium, but they were saying, really, my culture is anything that allows me to express my creativity, my heritage. It could be gardening, it could be cooking, it could be cultural groups and celebrations. And we've seen that with our formal cultural groups that we get applications from through the Arts Council. We now have a Chinese Heritage Group. We have a Canadian Caribbean Association of Halton. So we're starting to have a broader diversity of groups that we're working with outside of the kind of three traditional, visual arts, music, and the performing arts.
Right.
The QE Park.
Oh, what a facility.
Well, but it's not only just an absolutely wonderful facility. They took an abandoned school by the school board,
Yes.
and regenerated it into an arts, cultural, recreational facility. And I'm interested in how easy or difficult that was for you to get the support of town council and get the support of the residents down there.
I think the residents certainly wanted a community center in their area, so there was, a lot of support for that. And we had an arts community that was working through an organization at the time called Community Art Space and through the Oakville Arts Council. They had really been advocating for municipal-run or led cultural space for a number of years. It was absolutely a process. There was a lot of discussions, and we had to look at how we were going to operate the facility. I mean, there are a lot of similarities in the way that we operate our recreation centers and our swimming facilities, and we operate the pool there the same as we do our other pools, for instance. But we also had to find a model that worked for the cultural community, and so we worked with them to figure out ways we could have them set up and take down rooms on their own so the rental fees wouldn't be as high. We had to develop exhibitions protocol, who gets to be on the walls when, and we did that all in partnership with the groups in the community.
That must have been an awful lot of interaction with the groups.
It was, absolutely. There was there was a core group that represented many of the diverse groups that came on, and we met at least monthly as a group when we were developing the facility. And our facility manager, who manages the facility now, she had dozens of meetings with every single group that was contemplating coming in, working out how much space they wanted, what size space, what equipment they would need. And we had all of those discussions when the facility was still kind of under construction. So we tried to anticipate everybody's needs. And I mean, I think that we were lucky in that council had given us a facility that was repurposed. So we have 144,000 square feet in that facility. We had a lot of room to work with, and we were able to accommodate people's needs in the specialized spaces, because as you know, the needs of the woodworkers are completely different from the needs of the choir that needs a large rehearsal hall space.
Right.
So we were very lucky in that we had the space. We just had to figure out what the right configuration was.
Yeah. Well, the beauty of that facility too is that it accommodates activities of all kinds for all ages. So from the very young to the seniors. The seniors have their own space as well at the facility. And I think it is so unique in that there was an open, first of all, there was an open process. And then there was an open thought in the town of Oakville to repurpose this center and really encompass arts and culture, which is a real challenge in other communities. Oakville
in this day and age.
In this day and age, well, we see it in education. We see cutbacks in arts, in education. We see cutbacks or not moving forward with supporting arts in other communities. When you were going through this process, did you have a lot of pushback, a lot of sort of, no, we don't want this, we want more sports facilities, we want more, no, arts doesn't need to have any support?
I was fairly new to the municipality at the time, so there may have been some at an earlier date, but really there was a lot of support. I think that the fact that we had so many cultural groups working with us, and they were very active in educating council as to why there was a need. And the mix of facilities was really great. I mean, council understood the benefits of having a pool and having a senior center and having a youth center. They were all models that they knew. So there was a little bit more, I think, familiarity than in saying we're going to open this new thing and it's a model you've never heard of before. And I think that that mix has really benefited the arts and cultural sector as well as the other side, because we have parents that say to us all the time, I just came to take my child to swimming lessons and I've been walking around the halls looking at the art for the last half an hour. Right. Or someone that comes for a basketball program and says, I didn't know there was a woodworking shop here. I'm interested in taking that class or program. So I think that it really kind of bridges those gaps. I mean, you talked about people being a little worried about arts and culture, scared of it. And I think that having all of those facilities together really kind of opens a door for people to not have to walk into an arts center. Right.
Have you been called on by other municipalities to, because your model is so amazing and so inclusive, have you been approached by other communities to sort of talk about the interaction between all aspects of life, really?
Absolutely. So when the facility opened, the year after it opened, we actually presented. There's a network of municipalities that have cultural programs across Canada called the Creative Cities Network of Canada. And the Town of Oakville actually presented Queen Elizabeth Park Community and Cultural Centre at their annual summit as one of the presentations. And we've hosted many of our neighbor municipalities from all over Ontario to meetings and tours of that facility and talked to them about the operating model. And some of them are looking to do it on a smaller scale. Absolutely. Not everyone is lucky enough to have a huge high school that needs repurposing. And there are different models. I mean, in Toronto, one of the big models is by Artscape. It's a separate group. It's running those type of facilities. So people are kind of trying to balance out what works well for their community, I think.
Right. You've done things very differently, as Deb says. What one thing would you do? You started out down a path, and which of those paths wouldn't you follow any longer, and maybe take a bit of a turn and make it different than what it is today?
I think that as much as I say we did talk with a lot of the groups, I think that we could have done more and done more earlier to kind of draw those bridges and figure out what the operating model for the facility was going to be. I think that was one of our biggest challenges to start with. I think we needed dedicated staff to really be working with those groups long before we had it, and there ended up being a little bit of a scramble, I will admit, closer to opening, just to make sure everything was organized. And there's a lot of relationship building when you're entering into a new facility like this, so the more work that you can do in advance, I think, is huge.
What does, if I can just interrupt you for a second, Deb, and just ask, what does culture mean to you, Sarah? What do you...
So I think it's giving people the opportunity to either express themselves in any way that they want to, or to have an experience, whether it's going to a show or being able to interact with a piece of art or being able to create something. It's about giving people the opportunity to express themselves and to have cultural experiences.
And I think what that does is it builds a variety of interests for the people who choose to live within that within the town or the city, and it exposes them to a lot of things that they normally would not have exposure to without the support. When we
I just think of the tulips that were planted on Upper Middle Road, and they think of that as
public art.
Many people think of that as
public art.
Public art.
And it is public art. And so there are
poor public art and good public art. I guess it falls somewhere in between.
Because you don't know who it talks to. And honestly, I have a little bit of a Dutch background just because of marriage. And when I drive along Upper Middle Road and I see those, I think about the Dutch moment. And I think, they're not ugly. They're kind of pretty, really. I think they don't have the best backdrop with an overpass, but whatever. But I wanted to ask you about investing funds in artists, which is what you do through the Oakville Arts Council, and then supporting them again, arm's length, through the cultural grants. What dollars are we talking about here?
So the town funds the cultural grants process to about $110,000, and those are the grants that go out to not-for-profit arts and cultural organizations that are based in Oakville.
Right.
And so it's a wide variety of organizations, everything from the Oakville Symphony to a smaller group like a Fiber Arts Guild, for instance. And I think that what that does is those groups all are looking for funding in many ways. They have admissions revenue. They are looking for grant revenues and sponsorship. And I think it's important for the municipalities to support those groups because we're giving them a legitimacy and a process. The Arts Council administers the grants on our behalf, but it's quite a thorough process.
Right.
So by us verifying that they are a not-for-profit arts organization, that they have a well-functioning board, that they have a budget and business plan, and that we are supporting them as a municipality for the work they do, whether it's performances, and to get funding, they also need to demonstrate community impact in their grant application. And so last year, I believe it was 28 different organizations that were funded. This year, there's over 30 applications that have come in, so those will be decided and juried later this year. But it's really important to A, help the grassroots organizations get their footing, and B, provide the larger organizations with some operating funds that may be needed or funds for a special project.
Can I ask you, what do you think arts, culture brings to the society as a whole in the town of Oakville?
So I think,
because there are a lot of people that don't agree with as much funding as you're giving. So what would you say to those people and how it adds to their quality of life?
And I think that, no one ever questions the benefit of community recreation, and I use this often because we're a recreation and culture department. No one ever questions why we as a municipality are supporting hockey or soccer, or why we're investing in our recreation facilities and pools. And I think culture provides many, and we've seen this through numerous studies as we keep moving forward with this, that it provides, participating in cultural activity gives people better mental health. It gives them ways to connect with their community. It gives them a social network. It gives them a way for them to express themselves. We're investing in the cultural activities just like we invest in the recreational facilities, just like we invest in our parks and trails, so that people can have a well-rounded quality of life in our community.
And that is what we would like to see other municipalities in our region do, and understand the value of it and the importance of it, because arts is really, in many ways a non-verbal form of communication. So when you are in a position where perhaps you have a cultural difference or a language barrier or something, art can talk to everybody in their own way and make a connection. And I think it's so important, if we are going to build a community, that we need to have the municipality invest in that level as well. Great that we can have swim teams, and we can have hockey teams and baseball teams and all the facilities that way, but there is an absolute total value to the arts contributions as well. And if you talk to all kinds of professional athletes, and there is an Oakville athlete who is on Dancing with the Stars, by the way, and enjoying it and expressing himself in a different way and doing very well, you will find that they often talk about the fact that they are artists or they are musicians or whatever, and those are the things that relax them from their athletics. And why would we not want to invest in that? And that's my issue right there, Mark. And this is why I wanted Sarah to be here, because Oakville is such a marvelous demonstration of how the municipality can support both sides of the brain and the body.
It was interesting that you had that support from a large council of the day, because you couldn't have done any of these things that you did accomplish without the support of council, and it's not very often you get that kind of support. No, I'm being very serious that the type of support that you got from the mayor and council is rather unique in and of itself.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, I agree with you 100%. I think that they were, certainly looking towards the future, and they were listening to the groups and organizations and what they needed. And I think the fact that we did have a large, strong performing arts center already that had proven its community benefit and impact did certainly bode us very well when we were going forward with the plan for this facility. And
your performing arts center is going to undergo some changes.
Some changes,
yeah. Well, we don't know what changes it's going to undergo yet. That the Oakville Center will be 40 next year and does need some looking forward to its future.
Sprucing up.
Yes, so there's some accessibility issues that we need to address at the theater, and also know that the number of seats we have probably isn't the number of seats that we need to support the size of the community we have now, and also looking towards the growth. So we're trying to figure out what those needs are, and we'll be taking that to council as we move forward.
Okay. Can I just, do we have time? Do we have time? Okay.
Quick question or comment?
One of the things that I know, doing a lot of advocating in Burlington, one of the things that came up on a constant basis was the fact that the facilities and the attention seemed to be in the downtown southern part of Burlington, and that the north was kind of forgotten. Do you have that kind of an issue?
They got 3 big tulips on Upper Middle Road. Should be enough for them.
And some really nice bike racks, by the way, also public art. Did you have that kind of an issue in Oakville?
We heard from people that people were very happy that the Performing Arts Center is downtown, and they were very happy that we built Queen Elizabeth Park Community and Cultural Center. But we do know we want to expand cultural programming. We know that the customers that go to QEP are coming from all over Oakville, not just the regular area like you would see a community center support. But the update to the cultural plan does address that we do need to ensure we're offering cultural activity in all of our community center facilities. So we're currently working with staff to figure out how we can do that. I mean, we're not going to be able to build a woodworking shop in any of them, but it doesn't mean we can't use one of the community rooms to offer a kids art program or a dance program. So we're looking at that moving forward.
Well, I want to thank you very much for joining us today. It was a side of art that, and I have to admit that I am not totally convinced about the art and culture being as important as maybe Deb is, but I think you've explained it to my satisfaction, the uneducated one when it comes to art and culture. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, and to our audience, stay with us. I'll be right back with Deb Timstra, my co-host on The Issue, here on Cogeco TV.